Let's get it. Welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for giving me another hour of your day and another day of your time, because time is the most precious commodity. It is a commodity that once it's used up, it can never be renewed. So we hope today and each and every day that you visit us, that you get your money's worth for your time, okay? Um, Now, I want to talk about a few things, okay? And let me say this before we go into the show. You got to join us Friday, Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We're supposed to have Scott Ritter back on this platform. He's going to talk to us about what went on in Russia, the mind state of Russia, especially dealing with NATO, America, and this special military operation in Ukraine. And also, he's going to give us some more insight on this so-called Ukrainian offensive that is so-called underway. And we're going to talk about China and other things. So please make sure that you join us then. Also, join us tomorrow. I think we might be doing a one at noon tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to go back and check. But also, while you're in the building, please hit the like buttons or even hit the dislike button. Anything. Just do something, okay? All right. The show today is titled The Great Debate. Is America and the Western world in decline? Now, that title in and of itself it's a loaded title because there's so much to that, okay? There is so much to that. I was thinking about something when this bridge collapsed in Philadelphia, when interstate or whatever, the bridge, interstate or overpass, whichever one you want to call it. When it collapsed, it reminded me of the overpass or the bridge collapse down in Miami, Florida, in that area. And I thought about a clip that I had constantly played on this platform when they were talking about de-dollarization, and they were talking about the debt that America takes on every day. And so right before the show started, I frantically looked for that video on the on my control board. I found it. But before I did that, I went and I just Googled a few certain things because I wanted to bring something up, and I downloaded them quick and I uploaded them to the dashboard here because I want to put this in a way that the average Joe can understand exactly where we are in American empire, where we are today in geopolitics, economics, and the political scene, okay? Because I want you to remember that Joe Biden just announced another aid package to Ukraine in the billions of dollars, okay? I want you to put that in your mind and let that marinate as we talk about the state of America, because we're going to talk about her globally, but we're also going to talk about her domestically as everything breaks down right in front of our eyes. Now, why did I say what I said? It's because no matter what the situation may be, America is always in other people's business. She can always give them, and she can always invest in their so-called sovereignty, their so-called political independence, while losing her own. Okay? How in the world can you be America first? Because I want people who claim to be America first and always are supporting these massive spending increases by the military industrial complex and by the Pentagon. I want you to see how hypocritical you are. You often talk about America first, but you leave America at home exposed. You leave America at home in decline, deteriorating, divisions across the board, be it racial division, ethnic division, economic divisions, where political divisions, wherever it may be, you continue to leave those at home to fester and bubble and boil over, while you're talking about securing democracy in Ukraine and securing Ukrainian freedom, while you continue to blast us with fascist laws and dictatorial laws, okay, and suppressing freedom of speech and independence here at home. You see the hypocrisy of that. That goes back to what I'm telling you about the bridge collapse in Philadelphia and the bridge collapse down in South Florida, okay? and the constant water boiling warnings that you get, because we get them here in Florida too all the time about warning, boil your water. Now we see that Philadelphia now is experiencing that advisory too. This is going on, I might add, while America is putting another multi-billion-dollar aid package out for Ukraine. This is why America is spending tens of billions of dollars to pivot her military posture to Asia. This is why America is reinvesting and tripling down on billions in military expenditures to have more escapades in North Africa. This is why America is doubling down and investing hundreds of millions of dollars to try to suppress Latin America. You understand? I want to go to something. I want to refresh everybody's memory. I want you to pay close attention to this. You know what? I'm going to do it in reverse this time. I want you to listen to this. We're going to play the video that I played months ago about America's infrastructure and how nations are fleeing the dollar, and how America, her bridge and infrastructures are in need of urgent repair. 65,000 are in need of urgent repair. We're going to play that because I want to refresh your memory, because there's no time like right now to refresh your memory as America is dealing with another bridge collapse or overpass collapse or interstate collapse, whichever one they want to name it, right in her midst. The contempt that she has for her own people, to announce that she's going to give Ukraine another multi-billion-dollar military package while another bridge collapses and people are having to boil their water, while Flint, Michigan is still dealing with a water crisis. Okay? So this shows us we don't have to debate it, but since people like to debate, this shows us that we are living in American decline, imperial rot. Okay? I want you to listen to this clip here as I play it, and then we'll come right back, because I got a couple more short ones that I want to play with you. This one is like 5 or 6 minutes, so I want you to play. Matter of fact, hold on one second. All right, here we go. We're going to go and play the advisory first, because we don't want any problems. Here we are. Now, as we played the advisory, let's revisit this video clip here, and because I want you to keep in your mind that America has just doubled down and said she's getting ready to provide another multi-billion-dollar aid package to Ukraine, all while we see infrastructure crumbling in America. Because we're going to have some more videos along this line, and then we're going to venture out. Okay, so just give me a little of your time and just pay close attention to this right here. Pay close attention.
Dr. Francisco, just before the break, Clive made the point that you're trusting the medium rather than the person. When it comes to the United States, I don't trust the person or the medium. I'd be happy if I never bought another American thing or saw another American dollar because I don't like bullies. Isn't this partly the end of the era of the bully?
I think multipolarity is here. I think that's the key, and the dollar is dying. There is no question about it. Let me give you some figures that are quite important. The GDP of the United States is 24 trillion. The debt, the public debt, is 30 trillion. The difference between the total gross domestic product and the debt is 6 trillion. 6 trillion is equivalent to the combined GDPs of the whole of the Latin American countries together, including Brazil. That gives you an idea of the problem. That's number one. There is a US debt clock, which you can find in the internet. I ran it before coming to the show. And I ran it for 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, the amount of debt that increased in the United States was 8 billion. Now, 8 billion is, if you have 3 of them, that is the GDP of Nicaragua. If you have 5 of them, that's the GDP of Bolivia. The United States have a very serious problem with infrastructure. Their productivity is low. the number of bridges in the United States that require urgent repair, not repair, urgent repair, is 65,000. The quality of the road, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, they produce a report every year, 42% of the roads are mediocre or in need of repair. The electricity plants, airports, and so on, everything is a complete mess. The United States doesn't have high-speed trains. It doesn't. Sorry to say like this. Even Spain has them. So that gives you an idea of the problem. And the United States economy is growing at a rate of something between 2 and 1%. The Chinese economy, with all the problems, is growing at a rate of 7%. So that means in the next 10 years, arithmetically, the US economy is going to be 20% bigger, and the Chinese economy is going to be 70% bigger. Now, if you take what countries have done regarding this question of the dollar, possibly people do not know, but China and Japan are conducting their foreign trade in their currencies. Iran is conducting their business in no dollar. Russia and China, Iraq, and many other countries. But the recent decision by the Saudi Arabia to actually conduct the selling of their oil to China in yuan. Now, China buys 25% of the total output of Saudi Arabia. This is 30 billion. The United States purchases only 7%. So if you keep going down, you can see that there is already a multiplarity of initiatives. What we don't have is the international architecture, financially speaking, so that there is a system which is coherent, is international, it works, it has legal security that gives you legal confidence that if you enter into a transaction in that system, whatever it is going to be respected. That has to happen, but it's beginning to take place already. So the United States is in a real trouble, and it doesn't have any possibility. I just looked at the budget that Joe Biden presented to Congress for 2023. It's a very long document. It has three key components. Number one, domestic security. It's going to give to the police domestically huge amount of resources. The organization Black Lives Matter said this is not what we want. You know what happened when they have resources. And basically, Biden is trying to get votes from the right by doing this. That's number one. Number two is international security. He increased the budget, the military budget, to $773 billion, which is 30 billion more than in the previous administration. And surprisingly, he's going to apply a tax of 20% on the fortunes of 100 million upwards, which is going to produce 360 billion, and is going to reduce the budget deficit and the deficit of the United States by 1 trillion in 10 years. So it's totally useless. And in order for this budget to be passed, he needs to win it in the House, in Congress. He's got a majority.
Control over which he may well lose in November.
Certainly, but at the moment, if we were to propose it, he will pass it in the House, but he will not be able to pass it through Congress because there is 50-50. And Democrat right-wing, Joe Manchin, already said he's not going to support it. So it's already, not only is useless as a proposal to recover the economy, but it's already dead before it begins. So that gives you an idea of the problems that they have. So the issue, strategically from their point of view, is this. Do they continue waging war against everybody else? And who else is there to wage war? The calculation, it seems to me, was if we are able to bully Russia and make them accept our way, and then later on we'll continue with that until, we produce something equivalent to regime change, isolating China thereby, and therefore the next move is to attack China. And this one hasn't worked. The next one is certainly not going to work. So the United States is desperate because it's facing a very serious challenge. Number one, energy and resources from Russia to Europe, which really needs them, and the Belt and Road Initiative by China, which is at the moment is in the region of $5 trillion. So therefore, facing with this huge, very attractive embrace from these two nations that have huge resources, one natural resource, the other one technology, markets, money, and credit and investment, infrastructure, it's very difficult to say no. So the only possibility for them is war, war, war.
So he says America's only possibility is war, more war. Now, he said a few things in there. Remember that this took place right before Joe Biden was elected, okay, which was only a few years, right? So now listen. He says at the time, the U.S. economy was 24 trillion. He said that the debt was 30 trillion. Now, how is the U.S. economy a $30 trillion economy when all of the economic barometers have deteriorated? I'm asking you this. I want you to pay close attention to this. I see Rashid in the booth. We got my co-host back in the booth. Rashid, let me finish this train of thought and I'll bring you in, okay? Because I got to play these 2 short videos. Give me 1 second. Listen, if unemployment has spiked, if homelessness has spiked, if manufacturing is almost non-existent, if more banks are foreclosing, more banks are going belly up, bankrupt, like we saw in Silicon Valley, if more businesses are consolidating, right? If tax revenue is drying up, if America is persecuting and prosecuting more wars, right? And she's producing little to nothing, how in the hell can you go from 24 to 30? Now, I'm not the greatest mathematician in the world, but my common sense tells me that if my financial situation deteriorates, I'm not in a better financial condition. I'm in a worsened financial condition, right? So, but listen, this is the funny book that they do. They knew that the debt would have to be reported at roughly 30 to 34 trillion. So America upped her domestic product, funny money, bookmaking schemes to 30 trillion, so it wouldn't look so bad as the debt exploded over to 31 or 32 trillion, okay? Now, again, if we just look at what he said prior to the election, and the acknowledged debt was 30 trillion, and they've been spending trillions of dollars, how the hell do we still stay at 31 trillion? I want people to just tell me this, because I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm definitely not the butter knife, okay? So how in the world, if you've spent trillions since you've taken office, and the debt before you took office or before you were even elected was acknowledged to be 30, so how are we just at 31? I'm asking that. Okay, we're going to find out shortly. Rashid got disconnected, and he's trying to get back in, so I see it. Now, it's something he said. Everything, he didn't say some. He didn't say most. He said everything, which encompasses all things, right, is a complete mess. Look at the state of the cities. Look at the state of the counties. Look at the state of the state, and look at the state of the nation. Everything has deteriorated and declined, okay? The moral standards have declined. The ethical standards and practice have declined, right? Corruption has proceeded unabated by any moral thinkers. The government has been, it is totally corrupt, okay? Now listen, we're talking about 65,000 bridges, roads, and infrastructure projects that are in urgent need of repair. That's what he said, right? Now, he said that prior to. Now, let us look at something. This is one from 10 years ago, all right? This is 17 seconds. I want you to look at this.
Time to show you some of this morning's headlines. USA Today says tens of thousands of bridges in the county need repair. 65,000 are classified as structurally deficient. Another 20,000 are, quote, fracture critical. That means they could collapse if a single component fails.
Did you guys see that number up there? 10 years ago, 65,000 in urgent need of repair. So what that guy was basing his thoughts on was 10 years ago, even though it took place 2 years ago or a year or so ago when he did this interview. So there's no way, if the investment has dried up, that it's still at 65,000 bridges, roads, streets, overpasses, and infrastructure that is in urgent need of repair. That's 10 years ago. See, I pull up facts. I pull up facts and I show you. So we're looking at it. If he thought it was 65,000, and that was 10 years ago that he was basing his numbers off of, think about how many more are in distress right now when we are 10 years from that first estimate. 5 years ago, this is what they said. This is 2 minutes.
Ringing the alarm on America's bridges. A new report reinforces that thousands of bridges in America are desperate need of repair. Abijoy Burnett has more on how Maryland stands in the rankings.
The new report says nearly 56,000 bridges in the U.S. are structurally deficient, including the one right here over my shoulder in Baltimore County. And what that means is an element in the bridge is rated in poor condition or even worse. We travel over them every single day, but now updated analysis from the Department of Transportation reveals nearly 56,000 U.S. bridges need some form of repair, a number that's alarming to drivers.
I think the first word that comes to my mind is scared. I mean, I've definitely rode around and seen some bridges that are structurally deficient, but that is pretty scary.
Out of the 5,321 bridges in Maryland, 308 are structurally deficient, which means some work needs to be done, and another 1,000 plus are categorized as functionally obsolete. But Maryland transportation officials say drivers should not be alarmed, because if there is a danger to the public, they will shut down a bridge, and they've done that before.
I'm not sure that I'd consider the bridges overall in poor condition in the state of Maryland, but certainly we need to maintain an aggressive program to keep these bridges in good conditions.
Even though the state performs better than others, the bridges here, which have gotten poor grades, are the main conveyor for hundreds of millions of drivers every single day. And experts say that's a cause for concern.
We have an underperforming system, and this is a chance each year when this data comes out, we can really take a deep dive and see what's going on with the system.
In recent years, $2.7 billion in federal funds have helped Maryland with its bridges, a fix drivers welcome.
I hope that state to state we can build the infrastructure, not only bridges, but just everything in general.
Now, that same report revealed 314 new bridges have been built in the state of Maryland in the last decade. Reporting, Abijoy Burnett, WJZ Eyewitness News.
And the state also says that there are another 1,600 bridges in need of repair. That could cost $2 billion.
We know that Biden has just announced another multi-billion-dollar aid package. Now, I'm going to bring Rashid in, but I got to make these points here like I was going to make before they threw him out. Now, check this out. Here's something. 10 years ago, it was 65,000 or more. 2 years ago, it was 65,000 or more. On that clip that I just played you, the woman misspoke and said 56,000, 65,000. So we have a line where we can measure time, and we can see that nothing has gotten better. This is why the guy says everything is a complete mess. 10 years ago, it was 65,000 or more. 6 years ago, it was 65,000 or more. Today, it's 65,000 or more, and America continues to dump billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars into war machines, war material, war financing, and the provocation of war. Let me bring Rashid in because I know he has something to say about that, and I'll say to him, man, I'm glad to have you back with us. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, this computer out here runs that.
Go out and come back in. Go out and come back in. It's a lot of go out and come back in. So listen. So how in the world? Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the best mathematician. I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm not the dumbest guy either. So there's no way that if the situation was 65,000 or more 10 years ago, and the economic barometers for the nation had deteriorated, and then 6 years ago, it was 65,000. And then right before Biden got elected, it was 65,000 or more. Yet everything says that things have gotten dramatically worse. How are we still at the 65,000? Because this is the number that the government feeds you. So if the government says that, multiply that by 2 or 3. And then you'll see the dire state, the domestic state of the American empire financially. And they do this funny money bookkeeping all the time. As a matter of fact, let me see if I got a clip real quick. There's a short clip just to show you what I'm talking about with this defense spending. Listen to this. This is like 2 minutes. This is by former Pentagon official Mike Maloof.
Now, this may come as a surprise or not to some of you. U.S. officials may be stretching the truth when it comes to the real cost of funding the country's war machine. That is according to an American foreign policy think tank whose report concluded that the actual numbers are much higher than what makes it out for public consumption. According to the paper, the Pentagon's official top line for the 2024 budget was highlighted, that top figure, around $800 billion. However, the real cost of Washington's expenses for next year is said to be closer to $1.5 trillion. The report by the Responsible Statecraft Institute also alleges the Budget Control Act passed in 2011 gave rise to a slew of gimmicks aimed at escaping budget controls, including use of the term base budget, which includes only peacetime expenses. As for war-related costs, the Defense Department and Congress reportedly load tens of billions into a slush fund, which is then not reflected in the official numbers. Well, former senior security policy analyst in the Office of the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Michael Maloof, says that budget control loopholes in Washington are designed to favor the Defense Department.
The Overseas Contingency Fund is another hidden boondoggle for special operations, and it doesn't have to be reported to the Congress. And that in itself is tens of billions of dollars. Not to mention the fact that the Pentagon every quarter goes back for so-called supplements, and by the time it's all said and done, it's well over $1 trillion. And frankly, this is why procurement and the budget people have never been able to get their hands around what the actual costs are, or to delineate in any way to Congress how much is being spent. Let's say, for example, in Afghanistan, they don't want to tie their hands, and in many cases there are, as I say, waivers to implementation and even to deadlines. So while I'm not a budget expert, I've seen from the inside certain ways things are completed, how they're calculated, and how they try to end run the system. That they have these loopholes in order to ultimately give the departments, particularly the Defense Department, most especially the Defense Department, what it wants and when it wants it.
Now, I'm gonna bring Rashid in. Give me one minute, specifically 1 minute, to finish this thought, and I got to bring Rashid in. Now, remember what I told you about the funny money bookkeeping? They'll tell you it's 700 billion or 800 billion, where you saw the report saying at least 1.4, 1.5 trillion. Now, that is enough to alleviate all poverty, all homelessness in America. Yet she continues to rob and be shiesty to her own populace. And on that note, I say that as she infuses more money that she doesn't have in the military. And then we look at what the military gets for what it spends. And we see a whole bunch of junk. I know Rashid wanted to talk about that. A whole bunch of junk. Just like I'm looking at the military, it's MarineCorpsTimes.com. And an article on there is titled, Unlatched Parts Ingested into F-35B and Marine Corps Mishap in Japan. So in the midst of flying, listen to what I'm telling you. And I'll have Rashid to back in this and break it down. In the midst of her flying on her so-called sorties and her missions, parts fell off the $1 trillion. Listen to me good. The F-35 is the most expensive machine that America has ever funded, costing somewhere between $1 and $3 trillion. And parts are still falling off. And they were ingested into the engines of the F-35B, which is supposed to be the most advanced version of that. Now, let me bring Rashid in because I know he's dying to say something on this matter. Rashid, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you clear now.
Well, I've been trying to, just at the new address, trying to get the computer up for the last 30 minutes. I just forget about it and put it on the cell phone. Now, once again, this stuff is nothing but the monopoly money.
Speak up a
What
little
makes
bit.
their money? What makes their money more important than, say, Russia's money or China's money? It used to be because she would send her military in there and beat you all to hell. Now that's no longer a fact. She, if she wants to get, if she cannot have other people to buy her debt, then that means all the huge ships that come across the waters that bring goods to America sink. And this is what's taking place. Scott Ritter was saying this the other day. When was it Scott Ritter or Larry Johnson? One of them. When he was saying that what really triggered this is when they seized $600 billion of Russian gold, Russian foreign assets. Now that makes everybody else around the world say, "Well, if he can steal Russia's money, he can steal ours." And so everybody is looking for a way to get out of her money. And if say when some of those ships hold 20,000 containers, 25,000 containers of goods. Now, if that ship holding that much those goods, do you think China or Russia or the rest of them gonna accept your worthless dollars for their goods that they can never get back? This is what the people don't understand. The economy is about to crash. Everybody getting off a dollar. You don't hear the mainstream media say that. What did they say? Is everybody is it's like a stampede away from a dollar. Nobody wants it. And if nobody wants it, that means she can't buy no good.
Mm-hmm.
That means that Walmart shut down, Target shut down. A lot of your food products inside your supermarkets come from China and from the Asian countries. You see, people think that this thing is going to go on in perpetuity. It's not. You can't keep printing up money. Let me put it this way. Say you've been using for the since 71 when Nixon took them off to go. Everything been on the credit card. Now let's see any one of us live on the credit card for 40 years. See how that bill come due. He didn't put out so much money that she can print dollar bills from here to the moon and back. And nobody gonna want it. Once again, if they don't accept your dollar bills for their goods, then what you gonna do? Well, yeah, you do nothing. Because like we said before, she can't go in there and slap China and Russia down like she did Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. So her empire is dying. This is what most people they don't see. They think things gonna go on for. I'm gonna find out what's in the next 30 or 40 years. No next 30 or 40 years. This thing may happen in the next week or 6 months or whatever. And the only thing she got left is to threaten somebody. And China and Russia didn't call her bluff now. What Russia did not want to do was cut herself off from the West. Now, with this Ukraine deal, America and Europe then did that for Russia. And Russia is a lot better off for it, right? Her economy is booming. If you don't get in there and let the as you used to say, the succubus suck all the life out of you, you have a lot of energy with you, right? and this is what's taking place. She knows that she's going down, and she's like a mad scientist flailing around with all kind of every kind of weapons or whatever she needs to try to stay afloat. But it's too late for that. Everybody else done seen her. She's been, like we said, she's been going off the credit card for 40 something, what, 40 something years. Uh, uh, 50 years. She's been going off the credit card.
52 years. 52 years.
52 years she been going off the credit card. I've seen an
Oh, we lost him. We lost him. Hopefully he'll get back on. We lost him. I hate that. Maybe he'll get back through. Let's see. Let's go back to it. It seems like my my YouTube studio is running behind everything, but let me get back to something. So, as Rashid said, everything is on the credit card. We know that. And all America is doing is threatening people. We showed you the state of disrepair that America at home is in, right? Now, common sense. You and I and others share common sense. And common sense would tell you, if my house is on fire and I have a fire truck, what sense does it make for me to go to another state to put out fire at somebody else's home when my house is burning down? Now, for lunatics and berserkers, it may be that they may deem that 5,000 miles away or 2,000 miles away is where they need to be. But for the common person who has common sense says, hey, if my house burns down, I lose everything, and then I'm in no position to help anyone, and I can't defend myself anymore because now I'm going to be too preoccupied with trying to get a place to stay for my family, trying to secure them, blah, 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 blah. And it's going to take me more time, more money to get back to this state where I was at, if ever I can reach it. But the lunatics believe that it is more important to get in the fire truck and drive it across state borders to try to put out a fire across state borders while their own home is on fire. This is insanity. Do you understand? Absolute insanity. But again, Rashid made a couple points. and so the threats are building. And remember what the guy said in the first video clip. He says that when he talked about the state of America's economy and the state of America domestically and how there are over 65,000 bridges and infrastructure projects that are in urgent need of repair. Then he says that everything is in a state of complete mess, right? He said America felt that if she can go and make war against Russia and then let that simmer and then position to China, then maybe she'd be able to do this, and that's wishful thinking. What that is wishful thinking. Now I want you to understand the magnitude of what we're saying and what is going on, because a lot of people don't understand what is actually transpiring. We're looking at one world, the so-called rules-based order, crashing and burning as another world is making its way in. Because we know through science, two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So for America to rule, for the Western-led rules-based order to rule, they must prevent, stop, or stymie any rising power. That is the stated policy of America. That's the stated policy of NATO, to prevent the rise of any near power or combination of powers from rising up to challenge American dominance. That is the national stated policy. I'm not making this up. So we have two worlds colliding. That's why there's so many tectonic shifts going on geopolitically and economically and politically. Because one world is fighting for its survival. In this world of I would call it the world of Count Dracula, right? because it's parasitic by nature, and it must bite, it must find a victim or prey, and then siphon the life's blood out of that victim in order to maintain its weight, to maintain its security, to maintain its position. If you think what I'm saying is not the truth, then why does America need bases all over the planet? She says that she has nuclear weapons to secure her nation. Well, either the nuclear weapons don't work and she needs to get rid of them and put the nation full blast on a military footing to build up her conventional military and invest those trillions of dollars into domestic projects in America, or she needs to level with the people and say, I'm fleecing you. This is the only way that I can maintain my empire. She needs to deal with the people in reality. Rashid, I just got your text. On my screen, I'm looking at it where it shows your name. But on my screen, I don't have a face of you yet. So I'm waiting for it. Maybe because you're on the phone, maybe it's taking a minute for you to get through. So as soon as I see your face, I'll bring you in. I got your text. I saw you. So Rashid said that what the empire is left with is threatening nations. Well, let's see. We see that South Africa, which is the BRICS member, and that is hosting the BRICS summit where Vladimir Putin and all of the presidents or leaders of those nations will be in attendance. America has threatened to sanction a BRICS member. Now, I want you to think about how arrogant this is. On one hand, she goes there and says, listen, we want you to be an ally. She does this to India. She does this to China. She does this to South Africa, right? She does this to Brazil, and she does this to the plus nations, the BRICS plus nations, right? And when they don't succumb to her bribing, they don't succumb to her threats privately, guess what she does? She then issues open threats. Now, again, let's go back to what I said earlier in the show. I'm just the average person. I'm not claiming to be the smartest guy. I'm not claiming to be a rocket scientist. But common sense tells me that if I threaten you and I hold the barrel of a gun to your head, and I hold the economic barrel of a gun to your head, and I hold a political barrel of the gun to your head, and then I say, I want you to be my ally, even if I were to go over in your corner, it would be to undermine you because you just threatened my national interests. But the people in the White House, the people in the Pentagon, the people in these think tanks, they can't think outside of the fog of military domination. You understand? So they threaten nations, peer organizations, near peer groups like they're doing with South Africa. Let's see.
South Africa risks losing up to $32 billion in trade over its neutrality in the Ukraine conflict. That's according to an economist at Stanlib Organization, the largest asset management company in South Africa. She says the West has economic strings that it could pull.
Together, the EU and US account for 30.4% of total exports coming from South Africa, compared with Russia's 0.23%. This means, should geopolitical tensions escalate and the West acts against South Africa, it could lose up to 612.7 billion rand in export revenue.
The company issued a warning to the South African government about worsening economic ties with the West. This comes as Pretoria has adopted a stance of non-alignment with the Western Bloc on the Ukraine conflict. It has abstained from UN votes condemning Russia, refused to arrest Vladimir Putin under a controversial ICC warrant, and continues economic and military cooperation between the two countries. RT discussed the situation with a panel of experts and looked at reasons why the West is ringing the alarm over South Africa's neutrality. What's your take on this financial management organization making a statement that could affect political issues, basically?
We really, as South Africa, we are taking on board the warning that was issued by Stanlib, mostly because it follows a similar warning by the South African Reserve Bank that it foresees potential secondary impacts of sanctions that could be placed on South Africa because of its position on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. South Africa's government describes it as a conflict between Russia and NATO. And even though it holds a non-aligned position, it has been quite critical of the manner in which the conflict is played out. Nevertheless, it is forced to consider the warning issued by Stanlib over the $32 billion, which would be placed at risk in trade. That's because the warning foreshadows a decision that needs to be taken at what is called the AGOA Summit, the African Growth and Opportunities Act, which is an act in the United States which gives South Africa preferential access to the American markets, not only for over 100 million rand or $100 million of agricultural goods, but 5,000 different items across different sectors. So South Africa views its trade relationship with the US very seriously, and it knows that it's at the moment skirting close to being punished in a way by the United States for its position of non-alignment.
Why now? I mean, why is the African continent so important right now for the West in particular?
Western corporations are more interested in benefiting from the weaknesses of states of Africa. If you go back to what has been happening in Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Uganda, in so many other countries where we have large resources, including my country, Nigeria, you see Western corporations are the ones that are extracting these resources and exploiting our continent much more, and they were protected and shielded by the state military assets. So the fact that they are threatening South Africa with a loss of 620-something billion rands, or $32 billion, clearly shows that they knew that should South Africa continue to take the route of BRICS much more deeply, much more aligned, they stand a lot of chance to lose. And that's why I believe they are sounding the alarm that South Africa is going to lose much, which I believe in turn, South Africa is going to gain much more if they continue to take this direction they are taking.
The BRICS is one big problem for the US and the other government of the Western countries, because the BRICS is maybe in the future we will see the BRICS like a big economic bloc or economic sector, economic organization, economic power, and this is not good for some exploration. Western countries right now is in the better condition if we compare for some BRICS actors. But if we have that all political exploration of BRICS running in the 1 or 2, 3 years, maybe we'll see the BRICS in the other dimension.
Now I see Rashid in the booth, but I see part of his face, but part of his body is missing. So I gotta wait for the whole thing to come in. It seems like it might be a connection problem, or maybe StreamYard tripping. That's probably what it is, the latter of the two. I also want to say this: for those of you who are listening, we'll have live streams all this week. We're gonna no times are set, but we're gonna shoot for noon tomorrow. But also, I want to say this: please join us Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time as we bring Scott Ritter back on this platform, okay? And spread the word, share the show. Now, there's a few things he has to say, and I'm going to bring Rashid in. I made a few notes down here because I want to address these things, and then I'll let Rashid come on the back end and address these things just as soon as his whole picture shows up, because right now it's just this, and then there's some static lines right here. So as soon as that pops up in there, I'll show it. But anyway, it says here, the guy says, why is Africa so important to the West at this time? Well, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of the Russian Federation, said it, and he just let the cat out the bag when he says Africa, right, stands or lies as the key to a new global order. Africa, he says. So if Africa lies as the key, because like the West likes to diminish Africa's importance, okay? But in reality, we know that Europe cannot survive without Africa. That's why it's so hell-bent on maintaining colonies in some form or shape in Africa. Do you know former colonial nations, they still have some type of rule on most of their former colonies, be it politically or economically? Do you know that? Do you know that France, the former French colonies in Africa and the former French colonies in Asia, do you know that they are still bound to use the French franc? So France gets an economic boost, even though France doesn't use the French franc. You make that make sense. Now, again, we go back to something. One guy says that the West is deficient. The U.S. is deficient. All right. And this was on the clip before that. The word deficient means not having enough of a specified quality of it or ingredient. Well, what makes the United States deficient now? Well, we know that her currency does not have any sound backing. We know that she does not produce or manufacture anything on a major scale, right? So we see some of the main building blocks of a powerful economy missing from the economy of the so-called most powerful country on the planet, right? Now, we do these things, we break these things down for you so that you can understand what these people are saying, because as they speak, a lot of times they speak at you, but over you, to someone else, okay? So, again, on the clip before, the guy says that, do you know that China and Japan, and he started naming other nations, that they do trade outside of the dollar. And that's what the BRICS Plus is about too. Now I say that, I'm gonna bring Rashid in just a second, but I wanna bring something up. I wanna go back to something. I did a video when I first started on YouTube about the Chinese conundrum that America has to deal with, right? And it was called, I think it was called, We Are Number One No More. It's still up on the channel. We are number one no more. And it's talking about America and her position with China. Now, I want to refresh your memory with this. Now, for anyone that wanted to find out how to pull this up, I'm going to give you I put in national interest dash China overtakes U.S. economy. Anybody can pull this up, okay? I did this, and I always give you how I do it so that you can understand that you can do it yourself, okay? Rashid, I'm gonna bring you up on the screen, Rashid, but I'm gonna mute your mic so I don't get any feedback. I see you in the thing. I'm gonna mute your mic real quick so that I can break this down, then I'll go from there. Now, the national interest on October 15th, 2020, the national interest did an article titled, China is now the world's largest economy. We shouldn't be shocked. That's from the national interest. This pro-U.S. military magazine did that article. And in the first part of that article, right, it reads like this. For those of you who have listened to that show before, you'll know what this is talking about, but I'm going to refresh it because I'm speaking to the masses. The first paragraph says this: China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world. That's in 2020. Now, here's the kicker. I'm going to read some more of that. CBS, if you go to YouTube and do a CBS Google YouTube search, CBS and ABC, I believe it is, 5 years prior to that, had already announced that China had overtaken the United States as the world's largest economy. I played the video. Go to that video that I'm talking about on this show and you'll see what I'm talking about. All the clips are up there, so nobody can deny it, okay? I would play those clips now, but it would take away and take too much time. But I just want to get to show you why she's pressing China at such an alarming rate and why she's vilifying China, okay? Because she understands that the yellow man of Asia is the one that helped take her down. Listen to this. China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world, measured by the more refined, okay? We're gonna go on that word refined in just a second. By the more refined yardstick that both the IMF and CIA now judge to be the single best metric for comparing national economies. the IMF report shows that China's economy is 1/6 larger than America's, $24.2 trillion versus the US's $20.8 trillion. Why can't we admit reality? What does this mean? This is what's in the national interest, okay? Now I want to go back to something, okay? All right, we'll go here. I want you to give me 1 second. Then I'm gonna all this will make sense, and Rashid will come in the back end and he'll get his words in too. I don't want to hog the show, but when I'm making a point, sometimes it takes a few minutes. So, according to the dictionary, the word refined means it's an adjective. It means with impurities or unwanted elements having been removed by processing. Purified, pure, clarified, clear, strained, sifted, filtered, rarefied, cultivated, cultured, polished, and civilized. That's what refined means. Now, if we look at this again, it says, measured by the more refined, more civilized, right? More polished, more accurate yardstick used by the IMF and the CIA. Now, if the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and the CIA, which is the Central Intelligence Agency of America, uses this yardstick, then tell me, why doesn't the Budget Office use this? Why doesn't the U.S. Congress use this? Why doesn't the White House use this yardstick? The question is asked at the bottom of the paragraph. Why can't we admit reality? What does this mean? Now listen to this. We're going to go down 1 sec to, I'm going to do 3 paragraphs. I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'm going to do 3 paragraphs. Then I'll bring Rashid in and I'll let him kick around, like we say on the streets, kick the bobo a little bit. So listen. He goes and says, this week, what week? The week of October 15th, 2020. The IMF presented its 2020 World Economic Outlook, providing an overview of the global economy and the challenges ahead. The most inconvenient fact in the report is one Americans don't want to hear, and even when they read it, refuse to accept. What is that point? What is that fact that they don't want to hear, and when they hear it, they don't want to accept it? Well, the paragraph goes on and says, China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world. Stop right there. That on top of becoming the largest holder of billionaires. Do you know China has the largest amount of billionaires in the world? They have the top 5 banks in the world. Do you know they're the largest manufacturer? They're the largest trade partner to everybody. They're the largest investors to everybody. They're the largest. They have the most powerful supercomputers. Do you know that? They are mastering AI right now. They have the largest army. They have the largest navy. And within 18 months from the report of last year, the U.S. expects China to then have the largest air force in the world. This is pressing the empire, which is pressing NATO, which is pressing the Western world. Let's go further. China has now displaced the U.S. to become the largest economy in the world. So all these things that America was number 1 in, she no longer is number 1 in. When you look at real figures, things that really matter, and it says, measured by the more refined yardstick that both the IMF and the CIA now judge to be the single best metric for comparing national economies, the IMF report shows that China's economy is 1/6 larger than America's, $24.2 trillion versus the US's $20.8 trillion. Now, before I read this next 2 paragraphs and bring Rashid in after that, now, if that was the case in 2020, and China's economy continues to grow, as a matter of fact, the United Nations said that China now is the economic engine of the world, right? If that is the case, but America continued to take on debt, how can America's economy be $30 trillion? I'm asking because we're going by these numbers. Let's go further. Despite this unambiguous statement from the two most authoritative sources, most of the mainstream press, with the exception of The Economist, continue reporting that the U.S. economy is number one. So what's going on? Obviously, well, we won't even go to that part right there, but I want you to understand, obviously, that America is being pressed. When you have dominated in everything, and you no longer dominate in the things that you dominate in, and you've ruled for so long, what Rashid likes to say, I'm the king, and you do as I say, not as I do. But what if you no longer have the financial wherewithal, the political wherewithal, or the military wherewithal to impose your extrajudicial policies on the world? Where do we go from there? War. That's where we're headed, to war. That's why America continues to push for war and more war, because she believes that, I know that all of the war games show that I lose, but it only shows that it gets worse for me if I wait this long, if I wait that long. So maybe I can throw a Hail Mary and I can win the Super Bowl of geopolitics. That's what she's saying. So let me let Rashid come in and chime in on this. Rashid, let me unmute you for a second and go ahead. Full steam.
It's like a boxer. It's getting the stuffing beat out of him. He's thinking of that one punch, right?
Yeah.
That one haymaker that's gonna knock the guy out, and I'm gonna come in victorious. What you were saying about the China thing, we really need to look at it in these terms. China has, right, about 5 or 6 the population of America, right? And they make things, right? They don't have a service economy. What are you doing? I'm working at McDonald's. What are you doing? I'm working at Target. What are you doing? I'm working at Walmart. Everything that China produces, they sell. Now, how in the hell can your economy be greater than the people that are supplying all of your needs? It just don't add up. Supplying all of your needs, and they got 5 or 6 of your population, but yet still you got the greater economy. It's a joke. It is an absolute joke to put out that lie. Well, he wants, if you stupid enough to believe his lies, he's smart enough to tell it to you. What's happening is he sees his economy and everything, his world power going down. And he's, once again, as we've been saying, he is very angry that he's getting replaced as the superpower.
That's right.
He can't go on, like we said before, he can't go slap China and Russia down and put them in their place. They're a little bit too big to be talking about fighting. So let's see if we can go beat up some small, medium-sized guy. And we believe that's going to be Iran.
Yeah.
They'll come in. Because out of the 3, Iran is the weakest one. And he's going to feel that he can go over there, and because he's been saying that with his generals, we feel we can beat Iran. But he going to get a hold of Iran, and he going to have a tiger by the tail. And it ain't going to turn out the way he think it is. He going to bully his way into a fight, and then once he get into there, he going to be asking somebody to get him out of that fight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He gonna be big. Go ahead. I said he think he want to get out of that one with Russia, but when Iran gets, see, he's not indirectly fighting Russia. He's fighting Russia, but he can always, as long as somebody else is dying, I don't care if 1 million Ukrainians die, 2 or 3 or 20 million Ukrainians, as long as it's not him. But when he directly into it and his military is being tested, then he gonna see that it's not gonna turn out the way he think it is. And then after this happens, then the Asian nations gonna see that he's weak, and then they gonna have a crack at him. He's going down. Whether you believe it or not, all you have to do is just stick around for a few days, and you'll see everything we told you coming true.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what I was just saying about the Chinese economy outstripping the U.S. And they have been talking about it. You remember I played clips. They have been talking about it since 2014 or 2010, and they finally announced it in 2015. And then 2020, they officially announced it. But the media continues to downplay this, and even Chinese officials continue to downplay this as not to raise any eyebrows in the Western world. But I want to show you the funny money book keeping scheme that America runs. Okay, now we know that in 2022, the IMF and the CIA said the U.S. real economy was $20.8 trillion. We know that. We have it right here. We can pull it up. We can show it to you. Okay, now let us look at this. According to a report that came out on October the 18th. Now, remember that this article was written October and published October the 15th, right? 3 days later, an article came out. And if you want to find this article, let me go back real quick and I can help you find it. One sec. I put in RT and then I put COVID wiped out $10 trillion of U.S. economy. That's what I put in the search engine. I put that in the search engine. So if that's what you want, you can pull this up yourself and see what I'm talking about. RT, COVID wiped out $10 trillion of the U.S. economy. Okay, now we got that. Now let's go to the article at hand. Now remember the IMF said 3 days before this that the U.S. economy was 20.8 trillion. Okay. Now, 3 days later, an article comes out announcing the $16 trillion bug. Pandemic could cost U.S. economy its entire annual output. Now, we do know that that's what took place because they had to give out checks to people because productivity was destroyed during the pandemic. So we do know that that happened. You can read the article. It has a lot in there. So now let's do the math, okay? Right here, all we need is this right here. Give me 1 second with everybody. All right? Now, so if the U.S. economy at that time was 20.8 trillion and COVID took 16 trillion away, that leaves us with $4.8 trillion economy. Now, we're in 2023, and we know that the economic signs, everything shows us that everything has deteriorated that much worse, right? So how in the hell can the United States economy be $30 trillion now? When it said that 16 of it was destroyed through the COVID pandemic.
My brother. I seen on television Superman pick up a building. That's how it can be done that way. Just outright lie. Say any old thing. 10 trillion, 20 trillion, 100 trillion, 100 trillion, 50 quadrillion. Just blah, 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 blah. Just lying all over down the street. And if you stupid enough to believe his lies, he's smart enough to tell them to.
Yeah. Hey.
Hell, 20 trillion. It'd be lucky if it got a half of $1 trillion because he ain't making nothing. Do you understand this? He makes nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. China makes his uniforms, or a lot of his military parts inside of his war machine.
Yes.
Right.
Even the U.S. flags that they fly in the campaign.
Yeah, little tail pins made it. Them little bit about them America, USA, made in China. But yet and still he run. Once again, if you stupid enough to listen to his lies, he'll have you believing everybody else is nothing and he the greatest thing on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that way. And we're seeing that. We're seeing the empire being brought down bit by bit. She don't see it. I mean, the general public don't see it. They still run around USA, USA. But it's just a slogan. It don't hold water. All of it, he took all of the jobs and stuff and transferred it over there. So why would I pay you $30 an hour when I can pay the other guy over there in whatever country $3 an hour? And then when he sees that he goes to I got somebody over here I can pay $1, and then he's looking around. I got somebody I can pay 30 cents. Greed is what helped bring his country down. He's a greedy guy. And he want to make all of the money, and he want nobody else to make nothing.
Yeah.
And that helped bringing him down. He is coming down, down. We keep saying this. Now, one day, this is going to take place where he can't bully anybody. And one day, soon, all of the stuff that he's done in the past going to catch up with him. Like we said before, since like I said, I seen a video where the guy was saying that really in 1971 America went bankrupt. They couldn't pay their debt with gold, and so what they did is they came up with a scheme, because he's great with schemes now.
That's what it is, a scheme.
That's all it is a scheme. Yeah, the old shell. Hey, you think he got money with it? No, it's over. It's not over. It's not in any one of the shell. The shell with the old shell game, the P is not in there. He's got it in his hand. We keep saying that. So what he did was he took the money and started putting everything on the credit card. Started printing up dollars like it's going out of style. Everybody got dollars. They got you can have as much dollars as it stand up at the tip of your house. But that means the value of it is less. He can say any amount of money he wants, but if it doesn't hold any value, it's worthless. I go back to what they said about the Confederate money in with the war between the states. The people that had all that Confederate money, when they lost, they never spent. And this is the same thing that's gonna happen to America. Yeah. He done bullied everybody with his money. Then if you don't, I'll sanction you. So it don't take a rocket scientist to see that. To be what did Henry Kissinger say that? To be America's enemies is bad, but to be his friend, right?
To be his enemy is bad, but to be his friend is deadly.
It's deadly. See, this is what South Africa had to do. South Africa had to go through. Everybody got to go through the Russian experience. It'll be a little bit of trouble at the beginning, but then overall, you'll come out a lot better if you get off of his monetary system. Since he can't hold nothing over your head then.
Look, in Africa, again, I go back to something Lavrov said, that Africa is the key to the emerging new world order. New fair world order, right? And this is why America, Great Britain, and NATO continues to double down in Northern Africa to fight terrorism. In reality, they are spreading terrorism because everybody knows
bringing the terrorism.
Yeah, everybody knows that they control Boko Haram and ISIS and Al Qaeda and everybody. And when they get done with that, they'll come up with 6 or 7 more different terrorist groups to justify their presence. But I want you to see what's going on and why America and the UK and NATO are really concerned about North Africa. And the rest of Africa as a whole, because remember, again, the Western world has been a succubus. You know, they suck the life's blood from their host. They get a mark, they say on the street. They get a mark, they attach to that mark, and they suck the economic viability out of them, and so that they can live free and live in luxury and all of that stuff. So listen.
And then talk about how the other people don't have anything. You down, you got nothing. And then meanwhile, I done sucked all of your blood. So that's the reason why you like that.
So now look, Now look what Africa is doing. This is why Lavrov said what he said, because let's again, before I play the clip, let me tell you all this. Africa, it has been proven, the continent of Africa has every mineral resource that every other continent has, but they have it in abundance. They have, like some continents may have this and that. Every resource, every mineral can be found somewhere on the continent of Africa. And NATO knows this. They even issued a report about this. This is what I'm telling you, about that they must keep Africa under thumb in order for Europe to live the garden life, right? But I want you to listen to this. This is what has the Western world so upset about Africa moving towards the global, joining on with the global South, Africa being a part of the Eurasian Economic Union, the Belt and Road Initiative, the BRICS and the BRICS Plus, all of this. This is why the United States and NATO are really afraid of what's going on. I want you to listen close to this. This is about 5 or 6 minutes. Listen close to this and watch it very good.
Kenya's President William Ruto has asked African leaders to take first steps towards ditching the globally bullish US dollar by signing up for a pan-African payment system to facilitate trade within the continent. He made these remarks during the African Private Sector Dialogue Conference on the African Continental Free Trade Area in Nairobi. President Ruto urged his peers in Africa to mobilize central and commercial banks to join Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, which was launched in January 2022. The system for intra-African trade was developed by African Export-Import Bank and African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat and backed by the African Union and African Central Banks.
Egypt wants to pay. Why are we bringing dollars in the middle of our trade? This is the question we should be asking ourselves. And in the process, all our business people are stranded. Egypt cannot pay for our tea because they are looking for dollars. We cannot pay for their sugar because we are also looking for dollars. You know? And this is I had a conversation with President Orama of the Afri-Exim Bank, and they have built a mechanism where all our traders can trade in the local currency, and we leave it to the Africa-Exim Bank to settle all the payments in local currency. We do not have to look for dollars. Our businessmen, our business people, our traders will concentrate on moving goods and services and leave the arduous task of currencies.
The adoption of the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System by African leaders, as urged by President William Ruto, holds significant importance for the continent. This payment system aims to facilitate trade within Africa by providing a unified platform for financial transactions, reducing reliance on the globally dominant US dollar. By mobilizing central and commercial banks to join the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, African countries can promote regional economic integration, foster intra-African trade, and stimulate economic growth. This system will streamline and expedite cross-border transactions, reducing costs and improving efficiency. Furthermore, by promoting the use of local currencies and bypassing the need for foreign exchange conversions, the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System can enhance economic sovereignty and strengthen Africa's position in global trade. Therefore, President Ruto was insistent that instead of turning to a dollar alternative like the Chinese yuan, African countries would be better off using a mechanism for settling payments in local currencies like the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System to avoid unnecessary problems.
I know we are all trying to see because of what the dollar has done to all our economies. The dollar has moved from less than 1% in the US to about 5.2%. With that movement, and I am told it is the steepest rise in interest rates ever since the US established their mechanism. That steep rise has caused us unnecessary trouble. I think it is important for us to figure out. Many of us are saying, oh, maybe we should move away from the dollar to the yuan. Maybe we should move away from the dollar to another currency. I suggest that we have a mechanism where we can settle all our payments, whether between our countries or externally, using our local currencies, and we have a mechanism like the one that has been put up by the AFRIEXIM to settle all that so that we don't have to be hostage to any one currency or the other. Without a single payment platform, payment instructions from one African country to another typically passes through several intermediary financial institutions, leading to increased costs, complications, problems, and unnecessary currency fluctuations, and ends up being a whole ecosystem of confusion.
Indeed, African traders and their local banks use correspondent banks, mostly in the United States and Europe, to complete payments between two African currencies largely in dollars, and sometimes the euro. It takes about 3 to 5 days for the payment to get to the recipient's bank with charges at every stage. This dependence on external systems undermines the efficiency and autonomy of African countries' financial systems. That's why many experts agree with Ruto that a pan-African payment system that eliminates the need for the dollar is needed to address these issues by streamlining transactions, reducing costs, and promoting intra-African trade. Such a system would enhance financial integration within the continent, improve economic sovereignty, and contribute to the development and growth of African economies. So, what do you think of our video? Do you agree with Kenya's William Ruto that it is about time Africa had a pan-African payment system to settle payments in local currencies to enjoy many benefits instead of relying on the US dollar? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and as always, do subscribe.
So listen, this is what's going on. The people say that this was sparked by Russia's wealth being stolen, but in reality, the true catalyst for this was the meeting between Robert Mugabe, Muammar Gaddafi, one of the former president of South Africa, and a couple other African nations joining on to it. This was the catalyst for this. But because Russia is a huge nation and a very, very central nation for economics, trade, politics, and military, when it happened to Russia, Russia was able to rebuff a lot of this stuff. You understand? And on top of that, when we look at this situation, right, the nations that preceded Russia in this were not as powerful militarily. And as Rashid said one time, he said the problem of Muammar Gaddafi got himself into a problem. And the problem he did, he was only thinking economically. And he thought that his people loved him so much that they would defend him to the end. And instead of building up his military wherewithal to go with that hand in hand, see, I give credit where credit is due. I'm not going to try to say that I said it at that part or whatever. Rashid, my co-host, he and I were talking, and he said that. And I told him, I said, you are absolutely 100 million% right on that. He should have built up like China did, the economic and the military component together, so that you can buy yourself time to strengthen both. And that's what China has done. That's what Russia has done. Now, before I go any further on this, I gotta highlight something.
Wait.
I gotta highlight this. This is a channel member. I have to highlight this first, and then I'll let you join in. Let's see. Let me see if they're gonna let me highlight it. Will they? I don't think they are allowing me to. Hold on one second, Mehdi. Oh, here we are. We can highlight it. Because at first they were blocking me from highlighting. We have a new channel member. I'd like to thank Mehdi for joining. And I also have to put up what he said on here. Then you can talk. Let's see. And he says, This is a situation in a very important country everybody seems to ignore and accept Russia and China. He's talking about the president of the country that we just showed. Rashid, go ahead, finish your thoughts, and then I'll highlight Mehdi again.
What isn't that what they doing in South Africa? Exactly what he was talking about doing? Having a South African, a South American, not South African, South American currency to deal with. Everybody want to get off the dollar, and everybody want to go local. Like the guy said, why should we bring dollars way across the country to trade next door? It just don't make any sense. The Western guy is such a schemer and a conniver. He done hoodwinked and bullwinkled everybody else to thinking, if I don't get the dollars, I don't have money. And it's really the other way around. The money is worth nothing. Your currency is worth something because you got something to back. And I got one thing before you say anything. Has Boko Haram knocked at this guy's front door? Because that's the kind of talk that Boko Haram, you're talking about doing something for your own? Boko Haram, go knock on his front door.
Yeah. Listen, believe it or not, the African payment system was actually put into place last year. It is actually working now, and at least a dozen or more African countries are now using it, and they're adding more and more. This is what I was telling the audience. Don't let Europe and America hoodwink you and say that it's terrorism over there, so we got to double down. The reason that they are there's an influx of terrorism is because of this right here. They don't want Africa on an independent monetary system. Guess why? Because France still benefits from it. Italy still benefits from it. Spain still benefits from it. The UK still benefits from it. And so they cannot allow for an independent Africa when it's talking about economics. Because once you are economically independent, you become more politically independent. And before you know it, you have other nations are saying, you know what, let's build up our military might to match this. That's what's going on in Latin America. That's what's going on in Asia. That's what's going on in Eurasia. That
everybody is getting off his money.
Payment schemes. Go ahead, Rashid. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Everybody is getting off his money, just like what you were saying. It's a stampede. The door then opened up, and everybody they had to come to around here. They call it the come to Jesus moment, like a little light bulb that went off in their head and say, "I don't need the American money. I don't need the American money. I don't need the American." And somebody else said, "You should have been got off of a long time ago." Listen good. If he can. I feel squeezed in this little box they gave me. I feel like, am I losing weight? But what it is that if everybody gets off his dollar, nobody holds his money, then that means his power and his influence is gone. If he can't say, "I'll sanction you," who does that Marco Rubio said? If we can't, they get off our dollar, we can't sanction nobody.
Yeah.
and this is what's taking place. Once again, if he can't not have any currency to buy those goods, what do you think is going to happen to his country? How many Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and they going down anyway too, because they tied onto his dollar, and Europe is going to go into the toilet. But if you don't have money to buy these goods, then you out of business. And the people can't realize this. You are out of business if your currency is not accepted. And he done been such a hideous and obnoxious person with his dollar bill that nobody wants to accept. And if nobody accepts it, his hegemony is gone tomorrow. A Ganymede today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
Mehdi says this, and I'm gonna comment on a few comments because I see what Mehdi said he can't post, and so I'm gonna comment on that shortly. But he says we came with U.S. aid, talking about America. We came with U.S. aid when we used to get who we want to get in charge, bribe and pocket, and just left bags of rice until next time. China and Russia built things and stayed out of their politics. That's right. That's absolutely right, and that's why more people are gravitating towards China and Russia. And listen, with America, if you don't bow, see, there can. Vladimir Putin said it. The president of the Russian Federation said it. Absolutely right. He said America does not allow for partners. She only allows for vassal states. You must be submissive in the partnership with America. There's no equality. You must do what she says, or else suffer the consequences. And Vladimir Putin was absolutely right on this. Now, let's go to the next one. He says, you both have solid brains. Also, we want to thank you for becoming a channel member also. And then he says, let's see. Hello, fellas. I was always but I changed my CC. I changed my CC. I don't know. If you hear that, it's raining outside, the frogs are outside the window and stuff like that. So you hear the frogs croaking and stuff like that. But anyway, let's go here. I don't know. Could you, what CC change my CC? Channel. I'm a little slow on that one for a second. Hold on. It says it says we are bringing in the terrorists and stoking the flames. What about the British diamond trade and influence in the world? That's right. And this is what I'm saying. On the one hand, they want to present themselves in suits. This is why I continue to tell you that the gangsters are not in urban America. The gangsters are not the ones with the little 9 millimeter and driving a little box Chevy riding through drive-bys. No, those are not gangsters. They don't wield any power. They don't wield any power.
Clowns.
The
Those are
gangsters are the ones with the suits on that hold positions of power and authority and influence in the government. You tell me what's more gangster than tricking the world into going to war after 9/11. You tell me what's more gangster than ravaging the entire world. Either you with me or you against me. And then justifying your military escapades because you said you got hurt. But what about the people you hurt? That's gangster. What about this? Stealing $650 billion. What's more gangster than that? I'm going to stick you up and I'm going to do it in front of the entire world and I'm going to justify it and say it's because of your invasion with Ukraine. What's more gangster than that? These are the true gangsters. So let's go a little further.
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
The gangster is the one who goes and steals. The gangster is the one who goes and steals a nation of 50 million people and had them work for him for nothing. Now that truly is a gangster there.
Truly gangster. That's gangster. And Mehdi says, Africa has diamonds and gold just waiting to be used to feed and build up their economies and back their own currency. That is a problem for the U.S. We cannot let them extract the resources. And this is why we're talking about this stuff. See, a lot of people don't like these truths because it gets in the way of their perception. They perceive that, oh, the West is doing this out of righteousness. The West is doing this because they're so malevolent and so caring. And in reality, what they're doing, they're using that as a cover to go into these nations, overthrow governments, steal the resources, and then use them to bag their own currency. And watch this. Name a nation, because somebody may say Afghanistan, and I'll take you to task on this. But name a nation that America invaded and left. Fully left. Because whether you know it or not, America is still drone striking Afghanistan as we speak. And she still has a contingency of small special forces there. So again, I'm gonna ask the question. Name one country that America invaded that she's left. That's gangster. and to justify, oh, we're their training, oh, we're their this, oh, and then the governments of the nations will say we want them gone. America just dismiss what the government of the people of those nations say and say, oh, we're going to continue to maintain our military posture there, even though she talks about democracy, and democracy is supposed to be the will of the people, right? But she ignores the will of the people of the nations that she has bombed, made war against, and occupied. You make that make sense. And she's talking about democracy. Man, if you don't get out of here with that flipping foolishness. And then it goes on, and Mehdi says, let's see. Oh, by the way, everybody, please hit the like button. Also, we're going to have a show tomorrow, I believe, around about noon or something like that, if we can. Also, don't forget to check out us Friday, specifically at 11 a.m. Central Time. We're going to have Scott Ritter back on the program. He's going to talk about his trip and his travel in Russia that he just came back from, and the so-called Ukrainian offensive and the U.S. pivot to Asia and the U.S. Provoking and stoking tensions in the Middle East and North Africa with Iran and the BRICS nations. So we're going to credit card. That's what he said. I'm sorry. He says he changed. Okay. I'm sorry. I got you. I'm sorry, Mehdi. This is. I got you. Okay. I got you. I won't post that then. Okay. All right. Listen, Rashid, I know you have something to say. Go ahead.
Well, it just shows you that as we've been saying before, everything is dying. He's on the Titanic going down without a life raft. The boats and stuff that left, and he's been left there. So that's what that is. He's on his way down, and the general public cannot see what's taking place. They are blind to that, of what's taking place. Like you said, Vladimir Putin said. Well, of course it is. He has no friends. He only has subjects.
That's right. America only has subjects.
And that he order around. And if I want to take something, I'll take it from him. Would have back in the feudal era, the king owned everything. he owned everything. The water, the land, all of the animals was his. Everything, and he knew was his. And if I wanted to take something, I just took it. I wanted to take Iraq, so I took it. I wanted to take Libya, so I took it. I wanted to take Afghanistan, so I took it. And then run around claiming that he's a man of Jesus.
Hey, and talking about the territorial integrity of Ukraine, while ignoring the Libyan people and the Libyan government that about the illegal occupation of Syria, or about you
got to understand
illegal occupation of Palestine.
Those are not people. You see, those are not actual people, because they don't come from the garden. They don't look like me. So if they don't look like me, then I can do anything I want to.
And that's his mindset.
That's right.
But on this dollar collapsing thing, just listen to this 1 minute and some second thing, everybody.
Well, I think the idea of de-dollarization is one which is going to be necessary. You have two aspects to it. One is the efforts of the United States to dictate the rules of trade and currency to all nations, which is the basis of the dollar system, or the petrodollar system, is no longer valid. This was a neo-colonial system that was imposed largely through the military force of the United States and NATO, regime change, for example, against Gaddafi, the attempt to overthrow the Assad government, the Iraq attack, and now the Ukraine war, so to try to weaken Russia. But it's not going to work. Many countries around the world, especially in the so-called global south, are now moving out from under this so-called rules-based order. And this New Deal between France and China is an example of that. You also had the Chinese involvement in the rapprochement between Syria and Iran. I'm sorry, Saudi Arabia and Iran. We also see trade going between India and Russia with a ruble-rupiah transaction basis. So we're in an era where the unipolar order doesn't function. And we see it with the collapse of the banks in the United States, the collapse of the Swiss giant Credit Suisse, the toppling, or the teetering, I should say, of the Deutsche Bank. So we're moving into a new era in which the emphasis will be on multilateralism rather than rule by one unipolar power.
Take the floor.
Well, you know, I was thinking, it's like somebody throw a big old celebration and nobody show up. That's what happened to the empire, right? All of this money and everything, and nobody showed up. Don't you want any of our money? And nobody said, no, we don't want it. Nobody just stopped coming to his party. He is being shunned, and over time, look at his history. He should be shunned. Like you said, he went and did all of that murder and rape and robbery around the world, and to him, he's justified of doing it. But when the second Russia take a little slice of Ukraine, the world got to end. We got to go over there and do something about this. Well, what about all of them people you murdered up? What did they say? What, 7 million people in Iraq or something like that? They said that have lost their lives. He ain't saying one word about it.
Mm-hmm.
Libya, Syria, Sudan, Yemen, Somalia, Eritrea, all of these, Ethiopia, all of this war and trouble that he's stoking. You go back and you see he's behind all of it. But he made, he done bit off a little bit more than he can chew this time. And Russia is going to whip his butt in Ukraine. And see, that's a bit of, people don't understand, that's tearing him down in the eyes of the world. Mm-hmm. Right? And then and then it's like a bully. Just been knocked down and he's looking around and everybody looking at him, wow, man, you ain't tough as we thought you were. So in order to get his power back, I have to lash out at somebody else. But I can't go fight the guy that just knocked me down. I don't want no part of that guy. What I can do is go this midget over here, right? That's half my size. Let me go over there and jump on him. And then once he gets that, then the midget whips. And it's just gonna go down, 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 down. As you were saying earlier about all of this junk he's putting out. Would they say that F-35, the gun don't shoot straight? Now, how can you have a warplane that the gun don't shoot straight? What is it up there for show?
It can't fly in the lightning storms or rain either.
And it can't eject the pilot. The pilot eject, he's gonna break his neck. So, as we've been saying before, it is the American industrial complex. They don't produce anything to protect it. The only thing they producing is to grab money. What they $5 million doorknobs and $10 million toilet seats. He is being. It's like the emperor. What's the name? The Wizard of Oz. The big old giant in the front of it. He's a big giant man, and then when you in reality, he's a little bitty midget behind the door pushing levers. Yeah. And that's what he's being shown, that he really don't have no staying power. Everybody sees the emperor with no clothes.
Yeah. Now, I want to go back to something we were just talking about, how her dollar's collapsing and there's nobody at her party anymore. She's sitting in the ballroom alone, right? Now, whose fault is it? Is it the nations who no longer want to be a part of that, or is it her, America? Is it America? I want to play something to you. I want you to think about this. America instigated the crisis in Sudan. And I'm going to bring this up because every day in the news, they're talking about Ukraine. So I'm bringing up other things that happen around the world also. So I want, because these people's lives are just as important as the people's lives are in Ukraine. And it's not just, it's not fair, and it's not right to focus all the time on Ukraine when America is causing bloodshed and terror around the globe at every turn, under every corner, every nook, and everything. Rashid, go ahead and say what you got to say before I play this clip.
And remember, as you said, he started it in the Sudan, but he started it in Ukraine.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is him starting stuff. It just so happens that it's not working out so well in Ukraine.
Nor are they in Sudan. Now check this out. The Sudanese, America tried to bribe the Sudanese. They bribed them to overthrow the president Bashar.
Bashar.
Right? Yeah. They bribed them to overthrow that. Then they wanted Sudan to have an alliance with Israel. They wanted to bribe them for that. They found out that the military was working backdoor with China and Russia, and then the military agreed to allow Russia to have a staging base, a naval facility there, and America sent the ambassador there. Listen, this ambassador went there and gave ultimatums, not negotiated, gave ultimatums saying that they had better rescind that offer to the Russian Federation, or else. Within 72 hours of the U.S. ambassador arriving there, giving an ultimatum to the Sudanese, a sovereign nation now, guess what happens? You had the Sudanese military and the Sudanese militia at war with each other. Now, guess what's important about this? The United States trained some of both. And now the United States is stepping back in, saying that they're going to sanction both. And then they're saying that they might even come in with military forces. Hold on one second, Rashid. They might even come in with military forces to stop the violence there. Oh, now listen, the situation that was put together by the UK, Israel, France, and the United States. I want you to understand the seriousness of this. To prevent Russia and China from having, I showed you the maps of where the strategic waterways are and how America has little islands or little bases here and there, all along there, whether they're legal or illegal, she has them. The UK along with them, and Israel and France and Germany and all of that stuff. I showed you on one of the previous shows, I believe about a week or so ago. So they put this to force the hand of Russia. Go ahead before I play this clip, because I got to play it.
Isn't that the same thing they did with Pakistan? With Khan?
Yeah.
You better get that guy out of there or else. That's his motto.
Yeah. They told Khan, they said, listen, you back us on Ukraine publicly, and you pull back from engagement with Russia or else. And within 72, whoa, how is this 72-hour thing keeps happening? Within 72 hours of that ultimatum, Khan was deposed. So again, we see America's hand, we see Britain's hand, we see the so-called, listen, I have to say this because most people don't know, when the European nations want to distance themselves from the colonial tag, they name the nations individually. Oh, France will do this, or Italy will do this, or Spain will do this. But in reality, all of these nations are NATO nations, right? And you know, if you go against one, you got to go against all of them. So it doesn't matter. The EU puts the spin. The EU is the political wing of the military arm of NATO. So I want you to just understand it. And I want you to, again, Joe Biden and the Biden administration has announced another multi-billion-dollar aid package to Ukraine. And yet they are sanctioning Sudan as they break the Sudanese government, the Sudanese military, and the Sudanese people. I want you to pay close attention to this, okay?
And over to Sudan now, where the humanitarian crisis is still raging. Despite the difficulties, though, Washington has imposed economic sanctions on the country, allegedly to stem the flow of support to local military forces.
Through sanctions, we're cutting off key financial flows to both the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese Armed Forces, depriving them of resources needed to pay soldiers, rearm, resupply, and wage war in Sudan. The United States stands on the side of civilians against those who perpetuate violence towards the people of Sudan.
Well, critics say these sanctions will only further destabilize the country, Recent calculations from the United Nations show Sudan is in need of over $2.6 billion to rebuild from the conflict, with only $354 million received so far. According to the UN, 18 million people are in need of humanitarian aid. Historian and author Gerald Horne believes Washington's sanctions will only exacerbate the humanitarian crisis.
Rather than throwing a lifeline to a drowning man, the United States is throwing water in the face of a drowning man. With the outflow of refugees from Sudan, this is placing enormous stress on neighboring countries, including Chad to the west, the Central African Republic to the south, not to mention Ethiopia and Eritrea to the east. And as a result, these sanctions, I fear, will exacerbate an already deteriorating economic situation. Now, one way to look at that, perhaps a naive way to look at that, is that the United States is appearing to be an honest broker, sanctioning both sides. But I think that if you dig a little deeper, you may easily suspect that the United States is trying to get leverage against both sides. And apparently the first side that cuts a deal with the United States will have sanctions lifted.
Now check this out. I gotta say this before we go any further. Let me just build on this for 1 second, because this is a very important point that needs to be made concerning this. There's 2 points that need to be made. First of all, the very amount that's needed for the reconstruction of the damage in Sudan and to restore it to its former self is almost the exact amount that the United States is passing in the next aid package for Ukraine. Now, mind you, the destruction, the war, the fighting, the killing has been egged on and pushed by America. Now, that's one point that needs to be made. Now, here's the second point. Yes, America is after Sudan for that base, that Russian naval facility. But here it is. She's trying to kill multiple birds with one stone. Eritrea, Ethiopia, Chad, the Central African Republic. All of these nations are now under extreme pressure, economic pressure, because of the influx of migrants who are fleeing the war zone, okay? This puts undue stress, economic stress on them. Check this out. Those are the very nations that publicly and openly said that they were going to side with China and Russia. And these nations said that they no longer wanted a U.S. presence in their lands. So it is not a coincidence that by going through and forcing this problem on Sudan, it trickles out and forces pressure, economic pressure and political pressure on those very nations that surround Sudan that have now pivoted to the east. Those are 2 points that need to be made. Rashid, go ahead.
The economic, what's that book called? Confessions of an Economic Hitman. What, he go in and put a gun and some money on the table. And this is exactly what he's doing. These two little midgets in this country to fight one another. That's how it's called divide and conquer. Right. The way you get a way out of that economic problem is to get off the American dollar. Mm-hmm. You just showed what they trading among one another in Africa. That's how you get off of his dollar. Stop. You don't need his dollar to go next door and buy a loaf of bread. You don't need his dollar for nothing. He is the one that's got to come over and get your natural resources. And instead of taking his worthless dollars for this bag of diamonds, you tell him you don't have enough money to buy these bag of diamonds and take it to the east. They'll give you, at least they'll give you some goods instead of a bunch of worthless dollars.
I'm trying to figure out, S is in the comment section. I'm sorry, but I can't make out your comments. type your comments over again, type them slow. Okay? I'm sorry. I don't let me say why all of the sudden to happening. I can't make any heads or tails over that. But again, it is no coincidence that you pressure and try to cause chaos in a nation that you already broke up. Remember, Sudan was a whole. They broke it up into South Sudan and Sudan. And now
they want to break that up even more.
And not only that, they want to have vassal states. They want to put undue economic stress on the nations that are pivoting towards the African monetary system and towards the global South. They're trying to put so much pressure on them that they buckle economically, and then they are forced to do an about face and come back groveling to the West. That's what they're after, man.
It's too late. It's too late.
Too late.
The flood doors have been open. The barn door has opened, and now all of the horses are running out of the barn. It's too late for his old tricks again of divide and conquer. It's gonna get everything he's doing is gonna get worse and worse and worse.
Well, S North. You asked the question why all of a sudden all of these wars erupting all over Africa and Asia. We're actually talking about the why, and we know that it is because of American, British, and NATO covert operations and pressure tactics that are in play that are causing these wars. Because remember, if you just look at Sudan alone, America trained both sides. America has, and you heard what the guy said in the clip there, that America is trying to play honest broker, but in reality, she's trying to bring both of them to their knees, and she rules both. This is how this works. Rashid just said it. It is a divide and conquer tactic that is age old. This is what the West has always done. They start the problem between two people. Then they come back and offer a solution. And when the two people come to the negotiating table and they accept the solution, the one who came up with the solution actually rules both parties. Think about this. We see India and China at loggerheads right now, right? Over a dispute. Who started the dispute? Was it India or China? No. It was left over from colonial Britain. We see China in a dispute with Japan. What did that dispute arise from? It arose from America reneging on her promise to return the Diaoyu Island, or what they call the Senkaku in Japan. They call it the Senkaku Island. After World War II, the U.S. promised to return it, and then it reneged on the promise, and then they handed it over to the Japanese. So now you have constant tensions between China and Japan. And why do we have problems between the mainland
Pakistan.
China and the Chinese in Taiwan or Chinese Taipei? It is because of U.S. policy, Western policy. They continue because they thought that Shanghai Chek was going to be the leader of China, but Mao Zedong and the leadership had different plans, and they ran Shanghai Chek out of mainland China. And at the time, China had no navy, so Shanghai Chek was afforded to go to Taiwan and set up because the Chinese couldn't enforce their total rule over that island at the time. And now you have a series of problems. Why do we see Russia and Ukraine? It's because NATO, under U.S. auspices, went into Ukraine, divided Ukraine, and forced this problem. Everywhere you look, there's war, there's trouble, there's trials, there's tribulations. You got America, you got Great Britain, and you got Europe's hand written all over, regardless.
Pakistan and India.
Yeah. Pakistan because of Britain, because of the U.S. These are old colonial leftover things that is causing these nations to war. And America and Britain did these things, and Germany and all of these former colonial powers, they did these things on purpose. Because if you are fussing with your brethren, or you are arguing and warring with your neighbor, you don't have time to challenge them on a global scale, economically, politically, or geopolitically. They can continue to maintain rule because you are now preoccupied with local and regional issues that weigh heavy on you. You understand?
And never,
these are vestiges left over from colonialism.
And never playing short. He is very sharp in the ways of doing evil. He is very sharp. He set up these stuff for a reason. Even with all of those African countries, who do you think drew the borders of those countries?
That's right.
He drew the border. And he would go into one tribe, maybe a third, go into another tribe, a third, and go into the other one, a third. And then he got nothing but chaos and tension there. And he can come in and play one end against the other. That's his old tried and true tactic. Divide and conquer.
And let's look at Asia for 1 second. Let me point to Asia 1 second more. Let me go back to Asia for a minute. Now you see there's problems brewing between the Philippines and China. You see there's problems brewing between Japan and China, a little bit between South Korea and China. And you see all of those areas that the United States has a stake in, there's problems. But if one recall, prior to World War II, that was called Indochina. All of that. Not Indo-America, Indochina. They said they fought the what? The Indochina Wars. This is what I'm telling you. If you are a student of history and a student of geopolitics, this stuff becomes more clear, especially when you follow the great Rosetta Stone of truth. And it becomes clearer to you. And you can see these things for what they really are. Let's see. Else North says they are the agents of evil for real. You better believe it. And if anybody told you anything other than that, they have lied to you. Everybody, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. And
he's better known as the arch deceiver.
Yeah. Now
there's none greater.
We've held your we still got a nice audience. We'll go a little bit longer. Rashid, we're gonna go back to something you were talking about earlier. You were talking about DeSantis and what he said about China, right? Well, let's go to the I think this is the speaker, one of the congressmen, and what he says about the world, China and stuff. We're not gonna play the whole clip because it's like 7 minutes and stuff. But I want to play this, and I want you to see, and I want the audience to see how in the mind of the berserker and in the mind of the Bizarro land, everything that Bizarro does is justified. If I go into your house and take your food, I'm justified. Now, if you fight me and try to stop me and prevent me, you become the insurgent, you become the terrorist, you become belligerent, you become aggressive. If I fly my planes on your border and you send up your planes to defend your airspace,
then you the bad guy.
I'm provocative. You're provocative. Now, check this out. I want you to see this because this is the mentality. Listen, this is not just the mentality of one party. What I'm showing you is something that is pervasive in Washington, D.C. So when I tell you that the political structure itself corrupts and is fully corrupted, you'll see what I'm talking about. I just want you to look at what this man says and how he can see fault in China, but everything that America does is justified, and China is the belligerent and the aggressor. Russia is the belligerent person and the aggressor, even though America has thousands of military bases around the globe, even though America is persecuting wars all around the globe while we're speaking, even though America is occupying illegally Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen, parts of Eritrea. Man, come on, stop this foolishness.
How dare America, how dare China and Russia take countries near these American bases? That's provocative.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to play this clip, and we're going to see in the mind of the lunatic. Here we are.
Welcome back. More warnings this morning coming out about doing business with China as Xi Jinping moves to make China the #1 economic superpower and overtake the United States. I spoke with Texas Congressman Michael McCall, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. We spoke here at the Milken Institute. I want to ask you about China because now the Chinese Communist Party has been able to get the Saudis to transact in the Chinese yuan. Are you worried about the dollar losing its reserve status?
Well, not so much what I don't like, all of a sudden they're the peace broker. You know, they show up at the 11th hour. We're not there, right? When we don't lead, China fills the void. So they negotiate this peace settlement between the Saudis and Iran. And all it really means is they can have embassies in their respective countries. But they're doing it. Macron went to visit Chairman Xi in Beijing when I was in Taipei. What I do worry about the dollar is in the Belt and Road Initiative, that's their debt trap. You have to sign a contract saying, I'm going to sign up for the digital yuan. What China wants long term is for the digital yuan to be the global currency and not the U.S. dollar.
That's incredible. Tell me about that as it relates to surveillance, because
we got to get this. Before we go off there, we got to, first of all, she brought up something and he brought up something, and he says Xi Jinping wants China to overtake the U.S. and become the #1 economic power. What's wrong with that? Didn't America have to overtake somebody to become the #1 power? Didn't Britain have to overcome somebody to become the #1 power at her time? What about all of these other nations? What's so wrong with China doing what they did? Oh, I forgot.
Because
China doesn't look like you.
And never forget I'm exceptional. Right?
And listen,
how dare anybody try to take my possession? China's not exceptional. Russia's not exceptional. I'm exceptional. Right? And what I say goes. How dare anybody want to get off my dollar, even though it's not worth anything? But the mere fact that you even thinking about doing that causes me irritation. How dare this man talk about making China's money worth more than us?
Well, listen. Also, he said something about this. What's troubling is the Belt and Road Initiative. That's what he says. See, that's the crux to it all right there. And he says to be a part of that, and then listen, he prefaced that with it's a death trap. First of all the nations that America has ensnared in her debt trap called the dollar. How in the world could you even have a straight face to even say that somebody else is trying to put somebody in a debt trap when you ensnared the entire globe? Huh? But let's go. He says the Belt and Road Initiative, China said to sign up for that, you have to accept and trade in the digital yuan. Now, what's important about this? There's over 140. Now we're up to I think it's 150 now of the nations of the earth that have now agreed to accept the yuan in some form or fashion and trade. What he doesn't tell you is that this is a threat to dollar hegemony, and that is why they are so afraid, because now you have over 3/4 of the population of the planet Earth now accepting the yuan. And that means that they also will be accepting Union Pay, which is a rival to what? SWIFT, right? Which is also interconnected with Mir, the Russian payment system, which is also connected to the West Asian payment system, which is also being connected to the African payment system, which is also being connected with the Latin American payment system that is underway. This is a threat to dollar hegemony, which means this is a threat to the life's blood of the American empire and the life's blood of the American military machine. This is why this has become the #1 most pressing threat to America and the #1 issue for American politicians and her men and women of war. That is why. Go ahead and say what you have to say, Rashid.
How many governments or interventions have China did? How many people did they go and attack? Huh? Bad China, bad China. China have I ain't seen China going on beating up Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, all of them countries in the Middle East, and down there in Grenada, causing China don't go. That's their model. We don't go and interfere in other people's affairs. But here's this guy interfering in everybody's affair every day and twice on Sunday, and got his lips to say that somebody is bad and he's good. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm gonna have to bow out, brother.
I'm about to close out now. I'm about to close. For everybody, thank you all for joining us. We'd like to thank you, and we ask that you become a subscriber. It's free. And we also say if you want to join the become a channel member and also join the Patreon. We have multiple articles coming out on the Patreon this week, and also we have multiple videos coming out on the channel for channel members this week also. So we invite you to do that. Help support the channel. Help support the truth. On that note, Rashid, what do you have to say in closing?
Keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes and your ears open, and watch as well as pray.
All right, everybody, hit the like button, subscribe, share this thing, and know that we love you if you love truth. But know that God, the true and living one, loves you best and will always love you best. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you so much. We out of here.